Nenio Guide for Unfair. Remember, if it works on Unfair, it will work on all other difficulties as well. What's Nenio? Nenio is a classic mage that excels on casting spells from scrolls. A scroll wizard. So, let's go and let's start with Nenio. Here you can check the stats of Nenio and how I made her for my Unfair run. She was quite good, especially against certain enemies in the game. Okay, those with low will, she was destroying them. After that, she attacks fortitude of enemies the most. Her reflex attack is quite bad on enemies, but in combination with Diran, we got ice and fire from those two, as well as a lot of utility, a lot of buffs, and a lot of good and valuable spells. So, let's go first the skills and what's most important. By far the most important is use magic device on Nenio. After that it's this 4: Arcana, World, Nature, and Religion. These would be the most important after use magic device, these two: knowledge. That's all there is with skills. Just pump up this 3 and take the rest of the points wherever you like. Basically, stick with these. Now let's check Nenio inventory. The helmet you wanna use with Nenio is Gnawing Magic. Later on, you will use +8 on all stats when you find. Amulet is classic, from armor class +1 all the way up to +6. Haramaki is very good on Nenio. If you don't wanna use Haramaki, you can use the robe that will raise cold damage. Of course, here would be Under Armor robe for cold damage. The only valid goggles I find for Nenio during my runs were these. As far as Claw goes, up those saves from +1 to +7, simple as that. Belt that you wanna use on Nenio, since she is a Scroll Savant and casting her spells from scrolls hurts a lot. The best belt that you can get is Specialist Belt, simple as that. Magician Ring as the first ring would be the first option. For the second ring, I like Flow of Water, and you get it in tutorial area. It's valid all the way till the end. For bracers, Chaos Scourge is absolutely great on Nenio. I found Twisted Temptation gloves to be the best option for her. And boots, by far, the best that you can grab on Nenio are Arcane Persistence. I was using 2 weapons on Nenio. The first would be a Quarterstaff of the War Mage to raise damage from spells, and the second one, when I was using illusion spells like Weird and so on, I would transfer to Phantasmal Guide. From quick items, I was using Demon's Eye, Wand of Good Hope. I always had 1 empty slot so I can put scrolls in it to cast, Old Grimoire, and a Pipe Fox. Now let's switch to Nenio's Mythic Path, Mythic Leveling. The first one that you wanna grab is Abundant Casting. If you're not that good in a game, and if you are afraid, okay, of dying, you should put Less Stand first. If you know what you're doing, you go with Abundant Casting first. So you just need to switch this, basically. So, let's say we stick with Abundant Casting first. The next one you want to learn is Expanded Arsenal, Magic School, Evocation. The next one you want to learn on level 3 is Ascended Element Cold, so you start dealing damage with both Illusion and Cold spells. The next one you want to take is Spell Penetration Mythic on level 4. On level 5 we go with Improved Abundant Casting for more spells. On level 6 we're gonna go with Spell Focus on Illusion. On level 7, Less Stand, I already told you can switch them. On level 8, School Mastery Evocation, because we're gonna use both Evocation, Cold, and Illusion for Nenio. On a night 1, we go with Greater Abundant Casting for even more spells, and for the last one, I took Ruptured Restraints, so she becomes immune to most of the annoying things in the game. Here we go with classic leveling. Nenio comes with Spell Focus Illusion and into Spell Penetration, into Greater Spell Penetration, that's how you're gonna open up during early acts, into Greater Spell Focus Illusion, into Elemental Focus Cold, into Greater Elemental Focus Cold. Combined with Mythic Path, she transfers her Illusion to Evocation, and then both Illusion and Evocation hurts. Next one you can grab is Iron Will. After that it's improved Iron Will, because we want huge will on Nenio so she stays stable during fights. For this one, this is a spell focus, and I believe I took Weird or I took Tsunami. One out of those two. Play with what you like more. Okay. And the final one would be Great Fortitude. Now back to her Wizard Scroll Savant here. She receives her Focus, she receives Scroll Specialization, she receives Scroll Mastery. Over here I took Meta Magic for Empower. And for the last one I use Combat Casting. That's all there is with Nenio basically. Now, what does she need? Because I was playing Aeon Inquisitor, I never had to use Team Feat on Nenio, okay? And the only Team Feat that Nenio needs is Shake It Off. So, we need to exclude one feat over here and add Shake It Off. You can easily exclude Great Fortitude, or you can exclude Iron Will and then Shake It Off instead of it and continue playing. You basically lose nothing, it's only +2. Alright, you just need Shake It Off instead of this or instead of this, it doesn't matter. Here you can check martial stats in more detail. Now I'm gonna hover through all of the abilities and show you how Nenio looks like on Myra. Pause where you want. This is intelligence from a book. That's what Aeon gives. Scrap down. And considering we have a classic illusion called Evocation Mage, now the most important thing is a spellbook and how to play Nenio. We're gonna start with a spellbook. From the first level spells, the most important that you can get is Dismiss, of course, you're gonna use it a lot, and Array of Frost. These two. First level spells, nothing to think about here, it's all the way up to Magic Missiles, Wreck It Up, alright? Use Color Spray and use Expeditious Retreat for faster running. The good ones to also have during Act 1 is 1 Grease and maybe 1 Burning Hands. Second level, Mirror Image, a must, extremely good if you wanna tank a bit with Nenio and buy a few rounds. Pit for crowd control. Bluer, absolutely a must. You need 5-6 bluers to cast on everyone before combat starts. Invisibility, very good to cast on a character with the highest sneaking skill, and then you can loot everything on a map, come back, get stronger, and then enter the fights. It's very good to cast, for example, during Act 1 on Voljev. Web for crowd control, extremely useful during Act 1 and 2. Of course, early game, you're gonna need a bit of a Cat's Grace or a Bull Strength, you know, spells like that, basically. See Invisibility, but all of that can also be casted through Scrolls and through Potions. So, I told you what's most important from level 2. We go to level 3, the most important one would be Displacement. Extremely good on your tanks, on Nenio under Mirror Image, on Voljev, and so on. Of course, bread and butter skill Haste, nothing to say about it, as well as Heroism. As you can see over here, level 3 is actually quite strong for Nenio, extremely strong, and what you need will be Displacement, Haste, Heroisms, and you can take 1 Spiked Pit for crowd control. we transfer to level 4. Phantasmal is greater for easier difficulties. On unfair, it won't work that good, alright? Weird will, but Phantasmal won't do that good. Dimension Door is a must to traverse certain areas and get that free loot. For some crowd control, we have Obsidian Flow and we have Acid Pit. We transfer to level 5, and this is where Nenio becomes Cold, Evocation, Damage Dealer, and Illusionist. For the favorite, we take Phantasmal Web for crowd control. And here we go with Icy Prison and Cone of Cold. Both are equally important, extremely good to have. They deal damage, they deal a lot of crowd control, especially if you can freeze enemies with Icy Prison. Even if you don't, they're gonna receive damage each round. Cone of Cold has huge AoE, and it's a very good way to open up fights. One cloud kill is always good to have. Level 6. Basically, Cold Ice Strike can be casted as a swift action, so I'll explain later how it works, but you can cast both Cone of Cold and Cold Ice Strike at the same round, and that's a lot of cold damage. Of course, Greater Heroism is an absolute must. And later on, you're gonna add Bear's Endurance and Cat's Grace for more buffs. Forget about Sirocco. Forget about Reyes. We want to deal damage and make sure that we deal damage non-stop, especially on unfair. You can play with the spells on easier difficulties though. We go to level 7. Also, very cool one. Everything you see here is absolutely valid on Nenio, and you need it all. Legendary Proportions for buffs, Key Shout for sonic damage when the enemies resist every type of damage in a game, okay? Firebrand for your entire team to deal fire damage. Prismatic Spray, you can easily do a lot of different things to enemies, including cursing them and turning them into weak petlings. Invisibility Mass is absolutely great. Level 8. Polar Ray, Cemental, Greater Shout, Sunburst, and Scintillating Pattern. Out of all of this, I believe that Greater Shout is the best to have and to spam, and you need one out of each of these, and off you go. This is the strongest part when Nenio actually gets insane, and all of it is because of Icy Prison Mass and Tsunami. And on top of that, there's Weird, there is Foresight as a buff, there's a Heroic Invocation as a buff. You just don't know what's better out of this, alright? The first one that I would take, once you start getting level 9 spells, okay, max spells, it would be Tsunami, because she gets Weird for free. So you implement Weird, you implement Tsunami. After that, you're gonna learn Icy Prison Mass, because if it triggers, and when it triggers, you can annihilate enemies with it. If you open up with a Tsunami into Icy Prison Mass, it can be devastating, alright? After that, you can learn Foresight and you can learn Heroic Invocation for pre-buffs. They're both equally good, but I would say Heroic would be the third one to learn, then Foresight for the fourth one. How do we play Nenio? Nenio can have solid amount of rounds and solid amount of fights during a single rest. One of them should always be with Weird, alright? One of them should be with Tsunami into Icy Prison Mass, so you open up with a Tsunami from sneaking, then you cast Icy Prison Mass. One of them should always be with Cone of Cold into Cold Ice Strike, that would be like classic damage dealing Nenio, alright? One of them can be with sonic damage, and it can be also with curses from Prismatic Spray. And one round can be fully dedicated to crowd control with pits and smokes and so on. Okay, all type of pits. Spiked pit, regular pit, poison pit, web, phantasmal web, and so on. So you got like 5 rounds or so, 5 fights, 5 encounters to cast everything you have with Nenio, and that's without pre-buffs. Alright, now we're gonna go to pre-buffs and I'll explain what to do, when to cast, what to cast. You wanna cast Expeditious Retreat, you wanna cast Mirror Image, you wanna cast Invisibility. You wanna get that Heroism on everyone early on, you wanna get Haste before entering the fight. You want to get displacement on a character that's supposed to tank damage, like Scylla, for example, or your main character if it's tanky, or even on Nenio if you cast Mirror Image on her. You go with bluer, displacement, mirror image, Nenio can tank a lot of hits. You can try and cheese out fights with Phantasmal a few tries, 3, 4, 5 tries on Unfair, for example, one should work, goddammit. If you manage to entomb enemies into Icy Prison, there is no way to miss them, that's why this spell is freaking hilarious. Later on, when you learn Greater Heroism, don't forget to cast Greater Heroism on everyone, it's just one of the best buffs in the game. Of course, same can be said about Mess buffs, Cat's Grace, Bull Strength, Owl's Wisdom, and so on. Legendary Proportions. When the game was out for the first time, you were supposed to conserve those Dino Bones. You couldn't buy Dino Bones, only what you find. There were like 15 in the entire run. Now you can get above 100. Alright. Plus, you can create scrolls for Legendary Proportions, so spam it. Spam Legendary Proportions. The moment when you get them, they're gonna make the game easier. Don't be afraid to go and buff your allies with Legendary Proportions, from a spell or from a scroll. Before entering fights, Mass Invisibility into Firebrand is devastating. Also, you can open up fights with one Sunburst. If it procs, you can blind enemies. And of course, the best opener for fights would be Weird, because you can cast Weird 2 times in less than 3 seconds. Surprise round into a real round with a solid initiative. Those would be 2 Weirds. You should clean a lot of demons with 2 Weirds applied. But it's your choice how you want to open. You can open up with a lot of different spells. Do not forget to cast Foresight on your tanks. And the last in line, Tsunami into Icy Prison Mess. I explained how it works. Tsunami, when they're rolling down on the floor, when they're prone, just cast Icy Prison, entomb them and wreck them. Simple as that. Do not forget that Nenio hurts way much more when you cast scrolls. Okay, so have a lot of scrolls, buy them, craft them, have a lot of good illusion scrolls and cold evocation scrolls if you really want to hurt. That will be all for Nenio. I believe that Nenio works the best in combination with Diran. Alright, because I already explained on my previous video how Diran works. They're ice and fire, alright, with amazing amount of utility. So these two are just devastating for enemies and they can keep your party alive without resting for at least 10 encounters. On Unfair, if you know what you're doing and if you know how to play. On easier difficulties, I believe no resting is required at all for like 50 fights in a row because of these two. That's how broken they are together. Very good also thing about these two, they don't need team feats, they only need shake it up and everything else goes towards them because they're selfish and they can hurt a lot.